Less than 2 weeks to go for the Manny Pacquiao versus Timothy Bradley fight MGM in Las Vegas on June 9th. And today is the media day for Timothy Bradley. At pinapasa na po nila itong card na to. Looking forward, bibigyan daw ni Timothy Bradley ng rematch sa November 10 si Manny Pacquiao. At siya po ay kumpiyansang mananalo dito sa laban na ito. Pero bago yan, that's happening on June 9th. But before that, June 2nd, a big telethon for LA 18. And this has something to do with a very important issue in our community, which is domestic violence. Let's watch this.
How prevalent is domestic violence in our community?
Well, it is an incredibly menacing pandemic that's been happening to women for centuries. The most recent statistic was that 1 in 3 women will suffer from violence from an intimate partner, whether that's physical violence or sexual violence. So the prevalence of violence against women is all across ethnicities, nationalities. It's a global issue. And so CPAF is really wanting the community to understand that it is affecting maybe your mother, your sister, your daughter, your best friend. So it is not something that is isolated.
What is it about Asian culture that helps or that contributes to, the prevalence of something like this?
Well, the thing is that, in statistic-wise, it's really difficult to count how many API women are survivors, because API, Asian Pacific Islander women, are the least reported for domestic violence and sexual assault. The prevalence comes from the culture. The prevalence comes from the shame factor, and having a woman identify that it's not just going to be herself that's affected. It might be her family. It might be her community. If she were to report that domestic violence was happening to her, if she were to say that domestic violence or sexual assault was happening to her, it is such a taboo issue. People, in terms of API cultures, keep things inside the family and so are not able to talk about it outwardly, which is why it's really difficult to get women to come and access services because they feel such shame.
What kind of services does CPAF offer?
We have a 24-hour hotline where you will always get a live person to talk to. We also have an emergency shelter, and that's where women and children can come and stay for a certain period of time. It could be 2 months, it could be 3 months, depending on the severity of the case. And they'll receive case management and counseling services as well. They'll also receive referrals. We have amazing community partners, legal partners. We have advocates who are able to work with clients to gain some benefits, public benefits if needed, or medical insurance. We also have a transitional shelter program where it's more of a long-term program for women who are exiting our emergency shelter. And the transitional shelter program is really a way to instill stability and to promote self-sufficiency. So it's really just a continuation of services for women and children.
Tell us about the telethon that's going to happen with LA 18 on Saturday.
Everybody should watch. If possible, everybody should watch, because what it's going to be one of the first times that CPAF is really going to be live and out there and talking to people about the services that we do, and letting people know that change involves them, and that because it's 1 in 3 women who experience physical violence, that it is not something that's isolated, that it is happening to people that they probably know, and that we need their support. There's been an economic downturn in the last couple of years. It's severely affected domestic violence shelters. Our resources are very limited, and while we receive some government funding, a majority of our funding really involves a lot of the community support. That's what's going to sustain us. That's what's going to provide the nourishment and the services that these survivors need.
And one final thing, because you've been working with CPAF for 5 years now, CPAF has been doing this kind of work for 30 years now, or what is the best advice you will give, or you can give, or you would want to give to viewers out there that are still looking for their voice, still fearful, but going through something like this, like domestic violence?
The main thing I want to tell them is that it's not their fault, that the abuse that they suffered from at the hands of maybe an intimate partner, that it's not their fault and that they have nothing to be ashamed of, and that there are services out there for them, and that there are women who are working towards getting their self-sufficiency and getting a life free of violence, that have been through the same situation that they have. So I'd like to let them know that it's not their fault and there's hope, and that we are out there to help them.
Don't forget, June 2nd, we have to be involved. We have to be not just aware, but we also have to take steps in order to improve our community. Domestic violence, very important issue. We need to be involved with that as well. When we return on Kababayan LA, more from the Timothy Bradley Media Day naman sa kanyang patuloy na paghahanda para harapin ang ating pambansang kamao na si Manny Pacquiao.